And welcome everyone to our panel this afternoon, the AI chapter, How the Rules of Risk Are Being Rewritten. We're at a moment in time where AI has moved off of flashy PowerPoint presentations and into real-world practical applications and solutions. This isn't just about tools and technology. This is about how decisions are made and how incidents and risks are assessed, managed, and understood. Crucially, though, it's about trust and establishing the guardrails and limitations to ensure that people have trust and faith in the AI, and that there is a safe path for the security industry to tread. So without further ado, let's have some quick introductions from our panel. Katie, perhaps you'd like to lead off.
Yeah, hi, so I'm Katie. I am Operations and Governance Manager at Bayes Consulting. So we work with mathematical modelling and data analytics and AI solutions as well to resolve data problems. And essentially what my job is to make sure that those innovations and the ideas don't get stopped with red tape and compliance and all the lovely things that everyone likes to avoid, and make sure that we can actually deliver a solution that is safe, scalable and responsible.
Dave?
Yeah, Dave Marsh from strixx. We're an AI startup based in Germany. Myself and my other co-founder both have a supply chain security background, and we're very much focusing on that human interface and being able to gather information, gather incident reports more effectively, much more easily, so that we take away those barriers to reporting. So that you can turn that information into actionable intelligence.
Rosie?
Hi everyone, Rosie Richardson from Createc. I'm Product and Strategy Director. We are an R&D company that specialises in robotics and sensing, so very much working at that intersection between the digital and the physical that we've all been talking about today, deploying sensing and robotic systems to make physical environments safer.
And Andrew.
Hello, my name is Andrew Tollinton. I lead a company called SIRV, which stands for Systematic Intelligence Risk Valuation, hence the acronym. We started out 10 years ago with decision trees, which is a form of artificial intelligence. It qualifies as such. And now we're working on an AI agent, which is effectively your connective risk tissue to bring all your data sources together in one place.
Thank you very much. So the first question, really to everyone, is what is AI, and specifically in a security context? How would you go about describing it? Because it's a very complex subject and we could get incredibly techie and nerdy, but let's try and avoid that.
Where do you want to start?
Go for it.
Shall I go? So I guess actually to briefly kind of give a bit of a wind back before I go into our applications of AI. When we're talking about AI generally nowadays, we're talking about any software that is using a machine learning capability or deep learning capability to continually, ideally improve itself, but to continually adapt and change of its own accord, and often using massive data sets to do that. But at Createc, we're using AI in reference to security in a couple of ways. So one example would be that we have a sensing system designed for real-time crowd monitoring of public spaces. Now, the sensing system itself, the physical sensor, that's not AI, but the AI part of it is understanding and learning patterns in human behavior, and then deciding what can we infer about those patterns of human behavior that may be useful to security professionals. So can we identify, for instance, if someone is behaving suspiciously? Could we identify an act of violence against women and girls? So we're using AI in that respect, and we're also using AI in the robotics space, so starting to deploy fleets of robots to augment man-guarding solutions, so typical patrolling solutions on high-value critical national infrastructure sites. And those robots themselves aren't AI, again. They may be using AI as part of their motion, but the AI part of it that we're using is video analytics, image recognition, understanding, actually perceiving the environment that those robots are in and learning from that.
Thanks, Rosie. Katie, I know you work for a company that does crowd behaviour modelling. Could you?
Yeah, so in collaboration with Createc, we are working on the lovely product which Rosie just been talking about. So yeah, what we've been developing is the section which Rosie spoke about with the mathematical modelling behind it, which works about the prediction tools and to try and work out what may happen next when we're looking at risk management, and then obviously with the real-time detection as well. I think in answer to maybe your broader question, it depends on how we're looking at AI and what we're actually talking about, so in different capacities. Obviously this is quite niche to what areas that we're in. And in the security sector, I think it's over different areas. So as I previously said, I look after operations and governance, so I look after actually like governing AI and what it can do and what it shouldn't do and what we shouldn't feed it maybe, and different areas with that. But also as well, I think there's different areas of AI, so not only just the AI in terms of governance, but also AI that we can use as solutions, like we're talking about, where we can use the information that's generated from AI to make decisions, but then also AI detection. So then we're looking at threat detection, cybersecurity, etc. So I think there's a lot of different avenues within AI, and it's not as simple as just defining one specific term for it.
Dave, Andrew, how do you see your worlds tying in with this?
So, I mean, AI covers a whole vast array of stuff. But I think the big building blocks that people have been familiar with was machine learning, which you needed people to code it, you needed data sets to train it, and there was a lot of effort going into getting that output. Then large language models came along, and everyone's kind of familiar with ChatGPT and all those kind of stuff, and you could kind of create stuff. And then agentic AI is pretty much bringing the two together, that you can either in low or no coding environments create some of the outputs that you would normally have to get machine learning experts in to do without needing that depth of knowledge. And there will still be the requirement for those people on enterprise level solutions, but agentic AI is giving a lot of power to the individual with a little bit of training to actually deliver a lot of that.
Andrew, anything to add?
Yeah, so I asked AI earlier, I asked ChatGPT, what is AI? And it said anything which is mimicking human decision making in any sense. So it's a synthetic form of mimicking a human in any form. On the point of agentic AI, if one thinks about a large language model like ChatGPT, I'd imagine a lot of you have used ChatGPT. The difference with agentic AI is it will do things for you, it will execute tasks on your behalf, and it has the autonomy to decide which tool to use on your behalf. So that's the next step. So instead of just assisting you, it will do for you. And agentic AI is where all the buzz is at the moment for applications. The website is supposedly dead, and we've got an agentic web is what we're going to go into. So that's what excites all of us, I suspect.
I think that brings us nicely on to the next question I wanted to ask, which was, how do we go about establishing the limits and controls, ensuring that there is some ethics and some transparency and accountability for AI?
So for me?
Yeah.
So we would use something called grounded AI. So if you imagine, generative AI, you go into ChatGPT, you'll get some strange hallucinations. March this year, Norwegian chap types in his name, comes back the response that he's been in prison for 20 years, murdered his 2 children, tried to kill a 3rd child. That is a massive hallucination. He was not in any way, shape or form a murderer. However, they can't get ChatGPT to actually necessarily erase that because they can't work out how ChatGPT works. So in answer to your question about governance, what we would invite people to consider is using something called grounded AI. So it reduces down the chances of hallucinations if you're using any kind of generative AI. So you have a body of knowledge which you pre-authorize. You take your SOPs, you take authorized third-party sources, that sits there as the body. You have a model that's already trained, so it uses natural language to communicate with that model. You can then make queries and make associations, do all the good funky things you want to do. The likelihood of you getting a hallucination is minimized. Not eliminated, but minimized.
Yeah. Anyone else would like to add something to that?
I would definitely add the data verification piece from our space is so important. I mean, we're asking AI to say make a decision about whether there is an intruder within a scene or there's a hole in a fence. And you, at the moment, always just need to have that human-in-the-loop verification. And what you also need is to have systems that serve up the data trail that came behind that. So how did that decision get made, which is much easier in our types of systems than if you're looking at an LLM, for instance. But you need that built in. You need companies that are willing to serve up that information and say, this is how the decision got made, and here you can replay it and understand, actually, that's the decision I would have made, or versus that's not.
Yeah.
And we also need people to feed into them. So these systems don't get better unless you have that verification, and it's that chicken and egg of needing people to use them, needing people to improve them. But I would be incredibly suspicious of certainly any physical security systems right now using AI that didn't have human verification and human in the loop.
Yeah.
And kind of bringing those two together, on the hallucination piece, one of the approaches we take is to use a multi-model approach. So we will run the same thing through multiple AI models and then have an AI agent that sits over the top of it and compares their outputs. Because if they've been trained differently, they will give, and they should give, slightly different outputs, but they shouldn't be wildly different. And if they are, then it starts raising flags to say, this might not be trustable, something's wrong here. And then also, so that gives you a certain level of resilience. And then in terms of the importance of the decision that's been made, determines whether there is a human in the loop. If it's low-level background stuff, if it goes wrong, doesn't really matter, then it's fine to completely automate. But anything that's kind of getting up to a severe or critical incident type, you always want a human to be making the final decision.
Yeah, I think that's where governance comes into it. And if you don't have that human element to manage the process, then that's where you run the risk of, well, not being human orientated, which I think we've identified today, is the basis of security. And I think that some of the main things that have come out, particularly of everything that everyone said about AI, because I think it's been mentioned, as we said earlier, in every talk, is that if you don't understand what you're using, then you can't use it in a responsible way. So I think transparency, as you said, about understanding what the model does, but also how to use it and what limitations there are, is really key to be able to actually get the best of AI and be able to use it as well.
So expanding on that idea, what could we say to the leaders maybe in the audience in terms of how they prepare their teams for the introduction of AI? What needs to be done to prepare their teams and their workforce?
Anyone want to go?
So the first thing I would say is you need to embrace it. It's coming. You've got an opportunity as leaders within your organizations to kind of lead the charge. And if you don't, you'll be getting dictated to. So that's the first point. And then it's all about education and educating yourself on the genuine risks. The number of companies that we've worked with that are super suspicious of using AI tools that fundamentally are already within their ecosystems. And, you know, if you're willing to put something in a Word doc, then you shouldn't have concerns about putting it through Copilot or the agents that you can build on top of that. So again, it's knowing what the risks are, taking away that gut instinct that I don't understand it, so I distrust it.
It's that getting ahead of it is so important, because I definitely won't name names here, but one critical national infrastructure site that I work with, I heard a horror story that they were really, really fighting using like robot gathered data to interpret that data and say maybe like a valve reading is XYZ, a gauge reading is XYZ, and they really didn't want to use AI for this. And I went to meet the operational team, and they've been uploading photos into ChatGPT to get them into numbers so that they could fill them into a spreadsheet. And you just think this is already happening in your organization, and the kind of blunt way to put it is that if you're not paying for it, then they're using your data, and you're not in control of how that data is being used. So I think carefully about giving people the right tools, because they will go round it anyway and find ways to work with it.
So I'm a big advocate, forgive me, I'm a big advocate for getting involved firsthand. So previously I'd always say get a team internally and sponsor an AI project. The thing you could consider doing is when you get home tonight, type a URL in, Lovable. If you take Lovable as one word, take out the E, you can start vibe coding when you get home tonight. And you just use natural language, and you can ask it to do certain things. Build me a website, build me a task manager, build me a function or feature that I'm wanting. And then it will give you an output, and you can turn around to a company like any of us and say, this is actually what I want. So the capacity for one to move forward rapidly at home on your desktop and actually start to apply the tools is there. So that's what I would promote.
Yeah, I think I would agree with what everyone has said, and I think we would be silly to ignore AI because it's not, I don't think it's a case of preparing for it, it is here, and we need to, as you say, get ahead of it before the uptake becomes damaging and risky. I think the Prime Minister addressed it at London Tech Week as well, about how AI can decrease burnout and people feeling overburdened with tasks, which I think is a great way of using it. But I think it depends on the organisation. So some organisations will use AI for those tasks and others can have a more tactile approach and have more, as you say, of a demand and a need for it. So it's exploring that within the organisation, but also managing what it's being used for, because I'm pretty sure instead of looking at it from a point of view, we need to prepare for it, maybe speaking to teams and seeing who's actually using what and are they aware of the risks that are sort of come with using and uploading pictures, etc. to ChatGPT.
I guess on that subject, are there any particular success stories or maybe some horror stories that you could relay where AI has perhaps not delivered the results that were desired?
The post office? That's me done.
I think it's everywhere, right? All you have to do is open up any news outlet and every day there's a notification of someone talking about something. And I think everywhere, whether you're looking at healthcare or defence or any industry within, not just in the UK, but in the world, it has the same approach that people don't want AI to manage their data autonomously. And I think that that is something that is really prevalent in the news, and we need to be aware that whilst we might not name every horror story that has happened recently or may happen coming up, it does have a real life impact, not only on organisations from a financial point of view, but also on the data owner as well. So there's a big risk potential, and getting ahead of that and getting educated and implementing things now can mean that hopefully next year no one will be quoting any organisation that anyone here works at.
I think most of the times it goes wrong is when people blindly follow without understanding. And we were talking about this at lunch actually, quite a few people with military backgrounds, and we were saying it's always better to start with a bad plan than a blank sheet of paper. And if you see the AI output as, at the worst, a bad plan, a starting point, then that's probably a really good sort of a level of distrust to have with it, and verify that it is quality before you move forward with it. Where, you know, I'll just throw it out to the audience, but how many people do you see now, you'll see an email and you can tell it's been written by AI, and that person has not put any real effort into even the editing. You're not going to trust that organisation and that individual. So it's always that, comes back to that trust but verify.
There's a lot of people that have suddenly become excellent wordsmiths on
yes,
there.
Yeah.
I think I can end on a positive example that I think the security industry can learn from, and that's my background. My master's is in parasitology and genetics, and there is a huge amount of amazing research into what AI can be used for in the medical profession. And I think if we look at the studies of the difference between humans analysing medical images and AI analysing medical images, we can just see this amazing use case emerging that can save literally thousands of lives. And I think that should give the security industry the trust to say, actually, these vision systems can be used to make important decisions. We should verify them, but they could actually save lives.
Sorry, one more note of caution as well. It's something that's just starting to sort of be aware in the media, is around model collapse. Has anyone kind of seen any of this stuff? So basically, there's so much AI generated content already out on the internet that it's basically consuming its own output, and gets worse and worse, as anything would. So be careful with your human-generated data and ring-fence it, and know what is human-generated and what isn't, because that will become more and more valuable in time.
Thank you. Well, I think that's really coming towards the end of our time. To round up, I think it's clear that AI is going to change the way that risk is managed and understood. It's definitely reshaping the way that it's defined. Without clear oversight and integration, we're not going to achieve that. But if we do achieve that, it's going to be a powerful ally. We need to ensure that there's trust maintained in the system. I guess the challenge is to move from curiosity to action. I would say that you think big by all means, but start small, and don't lose sight of the fact that AI is best implemented when it's augmenting a team or a workforce rather than replacing it. And just to return to the title up there, the rules are being rewritten, and I think it's up to everyone here to ensure that those are rewritten in a way that delivers positive benefit to the industry. Thank you.